Hello. I just got done watching the Odyssey movie in theaters. It is Friday, July 17th, and this is my honest review of the Odyssey. Now, I would like to say I have some credibility when it comes to Odyssey. Very little. I'm 17 and I'm kind of an idiot, so understand, if you hate my opinion, you're probably right. But I have read Emily Wilson's translation, Fagel's translation, some of Lattimore's. I'm sorry, it's a little bit too clunky for me. It's good. It's very important for translation. It's very interesting. It's not my thing. I've read some of Fitzgerald. At a point, it got a little bit too much for me. It's overly poetic. It's still really good. I want to pick it back up and read it. I will eventually. So that's my credibility for the Odyssey of what I've read. Understand, again, I'm 17. I have a very limited education. And, again, I am an idiot. So if you don't like my thing, I don't know, just comment. Or if I get things wrong, like legitimately just super wrong, please tell me. Like in the comments, just, I don't know. Like, well, actually, you see, it's not pronounced that way. I'm going to fuck up pronunciations a lot. I'm an idiot, sorry. My mother hates that about me, but I can't fix the pronunciation thing. I could, but I did not like the Odyssey movie at all. It actually kind of pissed me off. I was actually kind of angry in theaters. Now, I will say, it is a good movie, not a good Odyssey movie, in my opinion. It has great cinematography, great score. Actors actually do pretty damn well. With what they're given, I think they did a damn good job. So as a movie, let's ignore the idea of the Odyssey as a book, as an epic. The Odyssey movie by Christopher Nolan is good. It is very good, in fact. But it's the fact that it's an Odyssey movie. It's like, it doesn't perform well enough. And I want to go through 3 things that really tick me off, and I'll go through them in this order. The first one's going to be really small. Dialogue, then we're going to go on to characters, then we're going to go on to specific events. Oh, and with dialogue, I'll also include, like, style, I guess. I don't really care about that. So let's start with style, just get out of the way. It's a movie. He was never going to be historically accurate. I think the want for it to be historically accurate is a little bit silly. Even the Romans, everybody kind of made it look contemporary. No one in history really liked making it super accurate. It's also a piece of art. It's okay if it's not. And I think stuff with casting, if you're getting mad that Helen Troy is a black woman or that Tom Holland's in the movie, I think it's a little bit silly. Who gives a fuck? It's past the first minute I can say that. It's just, who cares about the casting? Matt Damon wouldn't be my first choice for Odysseus, but I'm also not, like, pissed. I'm not like, oh, Matt Damon. Oh, who cares? And all the people are like, well, they should have all been Greek. They should have all been Turkish. That would have been cool. I think that'd be interesting for someone in the future to do. But Christopher Nolan didn't want to do it. Who cares? It's fucking actors. Get over yourself. Dialogue. There are some points where I thought it was just a bit odd. And I might be misremembering things, correct me. Like, when they're at Troy and they're leaving, they finish the war finally. Odysseus says, we've been on these beaches for 10 fucking years. I dislike the use of swearing. Like, modern swearing. It feels out of place for the rest of the story because it is very limited. Like, obviously, they use the word like bastards and such as that, but those feel different. Like, the use of the word bastard feels different than the word of fucking. To me, it was a bit out of place. And to be fair, they're soldiers who've been fighting in a war in the mud and blood of their brothers. It's fair that they swear, so that's a nitpicky thing. Sometimes Odysseus calls Odysseus dad or Penelope mom. That also felt out of place. You know, again, I'm used to Fagel, so to me, as always, mother, father. Again, as a stylistic thing, that is completely fine. The dialogue in general was fine. It wasn't, there were some points where it felt maybe a little rushed, but again, those are nitpicky. That's a stupid thing to be like, I hate the movie because of this. So, that's fine. Now, on to characters. This will also tie in a little bit with events, so they're gonna morph together a little bit. I didn't really script this or do anything, I'm just going off the top of my head to give you raw footage. Telemachus. This is probably second? Maybe one of my biggest problems with characters in this movie. is actually Telemachus. I cannot stand... They did Telemachus dirty in this movie. He feels weak and pathetic. I dislike that about him. Because, don't get me wrong, he's not like this super strong macho man that's fucking... You know, he is still just he's about to be a man. He's getting to that age. He's coming of age, and you know he's surrounded by suitors. He can't do anything about. That's fair. But one thing that was odd is his lack of faith in his father that I didn't like. Because in the Odyssey, he's a lot more, and we'll get to that later because that has to do with other characters. He also, one thing in a specific event relating to him that I disliked. So when they're doing the trial of shooting through the 12 axes, Odysseus is challenged to string his bow. In the Odyssey, Telemachus attempts to and is about to. He literally could, if he wanted to, he could string it because he's of the bloodline of Odysseus. He has the right to king. That's what that scene shows. But then Odysseus like nudges him and coughs while he's in disguise. And Telemachus is like, oh, can't do it, guys. Because he realizes his father should be the one to do it, and it works with their plan better. And to me, it felt odd that he didn't even get the chance, and that it makes him feel like he just isn't supposed to be king. He is in the end of the movie, right? But it doesn't make it feel earned. It doesn't... To me, he feels so... just weak. He's not very fleshed out. He's not that much in this movie. He feels empty compared to the original book, the epic. Another character, Cersei. Cersei was... I dislike this Cersei. It feels... I don't like that she doesn't have her palace. She isn't about seduction. She isn't about this idea of independence. She isn't about any of that. She just says this hag, this old crone, right? A witch. I'm going to say hag or crone. She's a witch-type character. And she is powerful. Very powerful in it. And I'm not going to dissuade that. But it feels like they took so much away from her and made her so much less. In general, I don't like how that scene played out. But again, we'll leave that for events because that'll be a little later. And we'll get on to more Cersei about that. Other thing I disliked, King of Sparta, Melanius. That's how I pronounce it. Again, correct me. Why is it that he didn't wrestle the shepherd of the sea? You know, he didn't, the right-hand man of Poseidon, that, like, you know, he has the seals, he's the shepherd of them, and he sleeps with him, and then Melanius and two of his men, while they're returning home, they find him, because the sea nymph, the shepherd of the sea's daughter, I don't remember the shepherd of the sea's name, and they wrestle him, and he gets all the answers. He finds out how his brother died, he finds out how other, I can't really think on the top of my head, others were returning from Troy, and how they died, or how they returned home. And then he hears about Odysseus, trapped away in the Isle of Calypso. And so that's partially why Telemachus has so much faith, is that he hears that. It gives him a burst of realization that perhaps there is hope. Instead, in this, Melanius is kind of just... I don't know, he's just in poor taste. He's not really noble-like. He's not really Spartan-like. He's just brutal, and it feels like a misunderstanding of Spartans at the time. And again, if I am wrong and I'm creating a stereotype in my head or a fake idea of them because of my education, correct me. No, my ideas of them are not based off of the movie 300. I'm not that stupid. I'm named Leonidas. I know a good bit about Spartans. So, more than the average 17-year-old, which is nothing. Helen was just fine. I don't really care about Helen that much. Again, she's just not fine. It's not bad at all. Penelope was fine. They don't include Laertes, Odysseus' father, or Odysseus' mother in the underworld. Oh, Laertes is not in the underworld, sorry. Odysseus' mother in the underworld. She's not there. That's a huge part for Odysseus of where he's like, oh my god, my mother is dead. Who else is here? Who else have I missed upon my journey? It is a very, very distressing event in his life. In the journey of realizing the toll, he's always had that idea, but that is a turning point where he sees just how much time he's missed. The pain he has caused for his family, not just his men, but his family. Laertes isn't in it. He doesn't have his reunion in the field where Odysseus points out the pear and fig trees, the olive trees that Laertes planted for him. That's not in the movie. Again, it limits Odysseus' character. It shows very little of him. And then the swineherd's done fine. He's done well. The old maid, I mean, they could be a little more, I guess. I don't know. She was fine. I don't mind her. She was good. They just limited a lot of things about other characters. The suitors were done well. It's kind of hard to fuck up the suitors, to be honest. They're horrible people. It's really easy to write them. Odysseus, I did not like in this movie. Okay, that's a bit unfair. I do like him, but it is not the Odysseus from the Odyssey. Because this Odysseus has very little to do with cleverness, trickery, or wit. This Odysseus, while he does maintain the stubbornness and headstrongness of Odysseus from the original Odyssey, he really only has that. There's no clever wit to him. He doesn't outsmart the gods. He isn't filled with hubris because of how high and mighty he is with his intelligence. He's instead kind of just a guy. He just kind of feels, again, very empty. Not that he is. In the movie, he's done well for what the movie is, but compared to the Odyssey, he's really nothing like him. He, again, just isn't there. To me, personally, it's just not my Odysseus. It doesn't really make sense. And then on top of that, I Odysseus' war trauma, I think could have been done different in this movie. I think it's done in an interesting way of how it reveals it, how it shows it, his remembering of it, but he doesn't. Something I love is when he is in the kingdom of Phaeacia, where Nausicaa is from. The bard plays a story of the sacking of Troy, and he weeps. He weeps, and that's another thing in this movie that I just like, is that emotions and points are taken out. He does not cry as much. He does not weep for his fallen men. He simply talks about it, and I think without an emotion, it makes him feel so much different, because that tenderness of that moment where he truly does weep. He cries tears because he cannot stand to know all those that he lost. That would have been great in this movie, but it's just completely removed. His war trauma is just dealt through the subconscious figure of Zendaya playing Athena, and I don't like that. It creates this odd idea of it, and I don't think it handles it well. I think the original Odyssey is a more interesting thing, that if you fleshed out its ideas more, you would have a more complete form. It's not going to say the Odyssey is perfect. The Odyssey was written over 2,000 years ago. It's not perfect, but it's still great. And it had great ideas and was handling great topics. And just to flush those down the toilet and say, fuck it, it doesn't really deliver for me. And I think that also comes into play with the meaning behind it. The Odyssey is about coming home. It is about the God's will and what that means. It is about hubris and what that means. It is the opposite of the Iliad. Achilles dies young in glory, always to be remembered. Odysseus dies old with his family at home, and he paid the price for it. And so that's a beautiful thing. And again, that's lost in this movie. And I wish that would have been something they explored more. I wish the understanding of what it means to come home was explored more. Because it feels, again, it's not the same kind of exploration. It does explore it. It is not the same moral point as, I'm not going to say moral point. The Odyssey is a very odd thing. Again, it's also something from an old culture, so it's very different to us. And I dislike how it modernizes it. Because I think it would have been interesting to see that ancient look at it. Because that means something. It's history. It's how we learn of the modern day era. Because we see how others saw it. And that expands us. Because a lot of people don't really know much about the ancient Greeks. They know who Plato is. They know who Socrates is. They know who Aristotle is. They've all read Aesop's Fables. They've heard about the Odyssey. Hell, a good bit of them even read excerpts from it. Or just the entire thing. But very little people really, truly research it, think about it, and do that. And that's something I think this movie could have inspired a lot better. And I wish it did. And you know what? I think this is a good place to stop with characters, because all the other kind of character things are going to go with specific events. So we're going to go to the events in this movie that I just genuinely disliked. Let's start with the Cyclops scene. Why did they get rid of the nobody thing? Why did they get rid of the nobody thing? Like, yes, is it kind of silly? And to us, it's like, really? Oh, he thinks his name is Nobody? Really? Oh, the guy was like, nobody's hurting me. Nobody has attacked me. And his brothers are like, oh, then you're probably just sick. Go the fuck back to bed. Leave us alone. Which is him outsmarting. It's his clever wit, but that's just entirely removed in this scene. Because we can't treat it like it's so stupid. This was the thing that started it. It was an important, amazing part of the Odyssey because it's a little ridiculous, but it shows his wit, his forethought, because nothing ever mentions that he has really allies around him. Not too much. And Odysseus thinks ahead. He thinks, if he were ever to call out, I need to make sure that he is never understood, that he cannot communicate, because if more than one of him, we would die automatically. We would lose. And so he calls himself nobody. I didn't mind the idea that they didn't give him the wine, I guess. That one's fine. Again, the whole thing is, though, that's how he tricked him into believing he's nobody, because Cyclops is drunk. So that's kind of just missed out on. Again, it's just very... It limits Odysseus' cleverness. I do think the horror aspect of it was done well. I actually find the Cyclops design interesting. I like his smushed nose. The eye was interesting. It is very odd. I've never really thought of a Cyclops like that. And I don't think it's bad. I think that's a cool stylistic choice. That's very interesting. Again, and then it doesn't make sense because when Odysseus is leading, because he's blinded the Cyclops, he's running out, he reveals his name. He calls to Polyphemus and says, I am Odysseus. I am he who outsmarted you. I am he who escaped. And so Polyphemus curses him in the name of his father, Poseidon. That's a big part. That's a big deal of why the sea is against him. Is because Odysseus, the sea itself, the god of storms, earthquake, horses of the sea, is against him. That's a big deal. And this actually leads to a whole problem with the movie I have in general. The lack of supernatural elements. There's effectively nothing supernatural in this except for Circe and Polyphemus. And then there's the Lestrygonians. I think this is done oddly because it doesn't really include any. It doesn't. It's not that it really doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't include the cannibal nature of them. It includes that they're giants, they're huge, and they're terrifying. You know, that young boy or girl, the child. I guess actually, I don't know if the Odyssey originally mentions if it's a girl or a boy. I'd have to look into that. I'll edit it in what it is, or if it's unknown. The child, we'll refer to it as, it leads them to him. And then their fucking men are slaughtered. They're eaten alive, right? And, well, we don't really know how they're eaten, but they're eaten. They're cannibal monsters. They're giants. They're horrific. And so I actually think that would have played in really well because of how Nolan does it, because it's very horror-focused in a lot of these parts. And I think the Lestrygonians coming in, crushing them, but then stopping in their tracks to, rip open a soldier and start devouring him. That would have been really cool. Imagine that on the beaches as they're escaping. They see them taking the men, just breaking up arms, just chewing on it. That actually would have been really cool. That's just a personal thing. The Lestrygonians, I don't like how they're portrayed in this. The armor seems a little silly to me. I don't like the helmets. I think they kind of look stupid. But they are kind of terrifying in this, and I'll give them that. They're not done horribly. Not at all. Then I don't like that he removes the Lotus Eaters. I guess that would actually come before the Cyclops. I'm sorry that I didn't put that in. I don't like that they got rid of the Lotus Eaters. I can understand why. Again, I can understand why. I dislike that he used the Lotus to put for Calypso. That is, to me, kind of stupid. That just really... that ignores what Calypso is about. This is, again, a character thing I'm just going to include with events because it works better. I don't like how the island is designed, but that's fine. That, again, is a stylistic thing, so I'm not going to, be like, oh, that's not my Odyssey. That's stupid to hold against him. So, my problem is just that ignores what Calypso is about. She's holding him captive. She is going, not really going against the god's will until Hermes comes, but that's another thing. And it just feels odd that and then, because it combines the kingdom of Phaeacia, I believe, that's what it's called, right? They reside in Sacheria? Again, I don't know Greek. I'm sorry. And it, again, feels odd. I can understand it because you have a limited amount. This is already a 3-hour movie. So I can partially understand that. But it just feels kind of awkward, and it feels like a misrepresentation of Calypso. Because Calypso is supposed to be this nymph, the sea nymph. She's holding on to Odysseus. She loves him. She yearns for him. She must keep him to herself. And, well, Poseidon doesn't want him on the sea, so sucks for him. And it kind of just ruins Calypso for me. Like, she sucks in it, but the whole point is that Odysseus wants to leave. And that's another thing in this movie that's like, well, he didn't really want to go home. What? What? He wasn't ready to go home. He was ready to go home. Calypso was just stealing him there. You're like, 7 years here, please. Thank you. And again, I'm actually doing a disservice to Calypso by explaining her like this. So if you want to watch someone actually, just go look up someone else's video. I'm unfortunately at 17. I have very limited time, and I'm tired. It's about like 11:45. So I don't like that combination. I don't like the Lotus Eater part. I think if you got rid of the Lotus part, but then again, I guess the thing is how would he explain it? But then you could just include the fucking kingdom. You could just include it. You can just have Nausicaa in the movie. Why not? You can make Calypso's part very small, which it is in the Odyssey. It's not that big. It legitimately is not that big. And that's something else that pisses me off. Circe. That's the next thing that pisses me off. Actually, I've gone out of order, haven't I? That's besides the point. I despise how they did Circe. She's missing main core qualities of her to a point where it's not really Circe. And she doesn't have her palace. It's a great hall. It's not like, well, depends on how you want to view it, but it effectively is. Nothing. It's not like, I don't know how to describe it. Unfortunately, a great house, a very fancy house. We'll say that. That's probably best to describe it as. Again, I'm limited in vocabulary. And she has many maids, and she has many animals, which are implied to be men that she has captured. And there's a very different feel to Circe and to the Odyssey in general in this movie, and that is the sexual nature of it. The Greek sex was very important. Even to us now, it's massive. But to them, it was more open than I would say how we treat it, at least in a very different sense. How they treated sex. And that is just completely removed. And I think it is partially because, to a modern audience, this idea of, Odysseus having sex with Calypso and Circe is like, oh, you don't really love Penelope, do you? But again, this is a Greek tale, and I think trying to limit it for a Western audience, because the Odyssey isn't Western, it's Mediterranean Greek literature, ancient. Ancient Greece was not Western. It laid the foundations philosophically for part of Western society, but it's not Western society. That's a silly idea. And it westernizes it so much that it loses core parts to the point of where this tale is completely different. Like the ending, I mean, obviously, if you've watched it, you know that. The ending's completely different. And I just like that. And another thing is, throughout the entire thing, as I mentioned before, there's nothing supernatural to this. But there's no gods. Athena is entirely just his subconscious in the form of his, of the girl he saw killed in Troy. That's an interesting idea. I kind of like that. I think she still should have been real, because the whole movie kind of implies that the gods really aren't there. I'm going to be honest. They get rid of Aeolus, the guy blessed with the winds, who Odysseus is about to make it home, and his crew is like, there's got to be jewels in there. Odysseus, come on, you sneaky devil. How dare you not let us see the treasure? And it's the wind, and they fuck over everything. You could include that. That's a great story, because they want to go talk about the mutiny. They talk about the tough relationship between the crew and Odysseus. That's probably the best mutiny moment, not the Apollo cows, because they were already gonna fucking do that. They were absolutely gonna already fucking do that. We all knew that. But that mutiny scene sets that up so perfectly. What is the point of getting rid of it? And that's the thing. It just wants to get rid of everything supernatural. And I hate this point about the sea people. Okay, I don't. That's actually a really interesting point. I like the idea behind it. And it's not the Odyssey. And they get rid of Athena in general, and it doesn't really set up Odysseus to be this great king. It doesn't set him up to be clever or to be a hero. It really doesn't, and it's not really an epic. This movie is not an epic. Not really. And it just misses that point to me. Because without the gods, without this idea of supernatural things, it feels awkward to me. You can tell it's missing something. Because the whole idea, Odysseus, when first of all, he looks the exact fucking same, but with gray hairs. He's in his little cloak. He's not disguised by Athena. He's not favored by her. He's not blessed by her, which is why he's able to fend up all the suitors, because in that fight, Athena helps him. And the other thing is, why isn't Telemachus helping Odysseus fight? That is their father-son moment, where they reunite. They get their revenge together and take back Ithaca, father and son. Not just Odysseus, because in this movie, Odysseus does it by himself. Telemachus does help. He kills the guy that's giving weapons to the suitors. Don't remember his name, sorry. And it just... Odysseus sees him for like 2 fucking days. Because then he just leaves. And it keeps talking about Zeus's law. That's not what Zeus's law in ancient Greek culture. It's a complete misunderstanding of it. It's taking, again, very Western idea. It's taking the golden rule from Western religion, the idea, do unto others as you would yourself. That's not Zeus's law. Because at one point it does that. It says, treat others as you treat yourself. It's not word for word that, but it's the same idea. That's not what Zeus's law is. It's about beggars, it's about strangers, and it's about hospitality. It's a hospitality law. It's very different. And as another thing, in general, this takes away Greek morals and Greek ideas and its religion in general to a point where it doesn't really make sense that there's Skrilla? The six-headed beast. It doesn't make sense that there's Circe, but there's not any gods, because it does play to the idea that, the gods are one and the same with their elements, with with the things they do, but it doesn't portray them, because the thing about Homer, which is why this is kind of a big deal in the Odyssey, he gives gods a lot of humanity. He gives them a human form. And well, yes, this was absolutely a thing before Homer. He defines a lot. The Iliad and the Odyssey define a lot about these gods. And it gives them a lot of personality that sets up a lot of Greece afterwards. Homer did a lot, or at least whoever we think Homer was. And again, without them, to me, this story fails. And maybe that's unfair, because it is his artistic choice to do whatever he wishes, Christopher Nolan, to do whatever he wants with the Odyssey. It is his idea. But to me, calling it The Odyssey, it didn't feel like he wanted to make The Odyssey. It felt like he wanted to make his own movie and used the bones of the Odyssey. And that disappoints me, because I think this is a great idea. I fucking like the idea of this movie. But I don't think it poorly executed because it's the Odyssey. And you can love this movie. And if you love the Odyssey, you're not illegitimate for liking it. I just personally dislike it because, to me, this isn't the Odyssey. This is Christopher Nolan's pet project where he called it the Odyssey and used its visage for his own little message. And it's not the Odyssey. The claim it's called the Odyssey should have the plot. It should have the meaning to me. And I dislike that, because there is reimaginings. One of my favorite books is Grendel. It is a retelling of Beowulf from the perspective of Grendel. And it's very interesting. It goes into isolation. It goes into these ideas of life and death and survival for Grendel and what that means. That's a great story. And I feel like this story could have been a lot better if it was just a reimagining. Because if it was marketed like that, I would be so good with this movie. I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like what you did there. But because it's just labeled The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, it's very misleading. It gets rid of a lot of the core parts. It changes the message at the end. And it removes characters and changes core parts of characters to a point of where I think is a good movie. It is not a good Odyssey movie. And it should not be called The Odyssey. As my personal opinion, with my own personal biases and love for the Odyssey, I would give this movie a 4 or 3.5 out of 10. That is very unfair, and I understand that. But it's because, to me, this is not the Odyssey. I dislike how it handled Supernatural. I dislike how it handled the gods. I disliked how it changed characters to a point of where they're not the same character. And to me, that is disappointing. And I dislike the lack of supernatural elements in general. And that is my opinion. Thank you very much. Yep, so there's my review of The Odyssey. Again, go see it. You should. It's a good movie. I don't think it's a good Odyssey movie. And that's just my opinion. Share any of your thoughts. If I got something wrong about Greek culture or if I have the wrong idea about characters, please share. Tell me. I'd love to learn more. I am very self-taught on these things, so I would love to hear more about this. And maybe you fucking love the Odyssey and you're like, this is the greatest Odyssey movie ever, and you're probably right. So I guess subscribe, like, and tell me what you think.